Recently, I drove 100 miles north of our offices to take part in the initial meeting of something being called the Sports Officials Shortage Task Force, the SOSTF. The gathering was being sponsored by Marian University in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. The motivating force behind the formation of the SOSTF was Professor Jim Gray, formerly with the Marquette Sports Law Institute. The game plan was to first have the lineup of invited influentials meet among themselves. After an hour discussion within that group, Marian students from a sports management class were then to be invited in to share their experiences and viewpoints about the shortage of officials. A number of those students did have some officiating experience. The students had earlier been given the assignment to investigate causes on their own and then to be ready to report out during the general session with the expert panelists. As for the expert group, there were about a dozen of us on hand representing officiating organizations, administrative units, governing authorities, and Marian University itself. We introduced ourselves and for the next hour or so shared perspectives about the shortage of officials that is being felt at all levels of sport. I would surmise that the general belief within our small group was that much of the shortage is a direct result of the bad behavior being directed at officials, especially by fans. For the second hour, the students participated, being part of 3 separate roundtable discussions, each led by 2 or 3 members from the expert side of the ledger. At my table, 3 of us interacted with 8 students. I found it troubling to hear what the students had to say. By and large, they felt that officiating has turned into a thankless assignment, one rife with criticism and abuse directed at those who officiate. They spent many minutes recounting their personal stories of work in youth games and what they had to put up with. They also raised the issue of the high cost of outfitting oneself to be a sports official, especially in the sports of baseball, softball, and football. All in all, they seem to have a good grasp of the challenges we face in our business. I will have to say that their perspectives and opinions certainly were not uplifting. They were challenging. After the second hour, the students excused themselves to go to other classes. Now, much of the focus throughout that afternoon was on the topic of recruiting sports officials. A number of resources, including this magazine and NASO's Say Yes to Officiating initiative, were frequently quoted. Much discussion within our panel was directed about the tactics of recruiting. At the appropriate juncture, I jumped in with this. In almost every business of which I am aware, it is much easier and cost-effective to retain a customer/client than it is to go out and find a new one. Retention is the key, and that certainly is the case in officiating. That topic of retention so often seems to be underplayed and even overlooked. This isn't rocket science. Provide a safe environment, treat sports officials with respect, and without equivocation accorded them the dignity of their undertaking. For those who run programs that rely on having a steady supply of qualified sports officials, the time is well nigh to demonstrate support for who we are and what we contribute to our society and our culture. As for us ourselves, don't accept offhanded treatment by organizers and game administrators. Step in, step up, demand, through your professional demeanor and actions, to be treated with the level of respect commensurate with the value you bring to the table. We have to get that bar set higher than it is. In turn, that means we are obligated to rise to those very standards in our own approach to officiating. The ball actually is in our court. Thank you.